Hello again. This video is going to cover a few things, starting with about the alpha and generally the channels themselves. I have here a Apple Motion project that I just made up for demonstration purposes. So I've got these different layers. These are the primary colors, red, green, blue, and the secondary colors, magenta, yellow, and cyan. I've got white in the middle, black behind there. And this is a transparency, just to show you the differences. First of all, I just wanted to show you an Apple Motion. If you go up here to the color section, if you want to see the transparent layer in the background, you just choose that instead of the color. So we'll do that. You can choose the others as well for as needed. But these are more of a advanced use on these. So we'll leave it at that. And the other thing, as I move the cursor around, you'll notice the position, which isn't really pertaining to this. But here, where you choose the color, next to it, you have your red channel, your green channel, blue channel, and alpha channel. And red and green and blue are obvious. They're just the different color channels in most in RGB color spaces. There is other color spaces that you can work. If, say, we select this and go to Inspector, and if we go to the fill color, double click, you have various choices here. HSB is hue, saturation, brightness. You have grayscale. These will all control different aspects of your colors. You have the CYMK and the RGB, which is generally what I used to create the color out of red, green, and blue. You've got all 0 along here, and as you move them up to the top is 255, you get the total color. So just a little bit of a background there. So what we'll be doing is I move the cursor around. It's designed to pick up the area group of pixels on the canvas, and it will calculate the amount of color that's involved out of each channel, red, green, blue. Now these colors pertain to the amount of transparency. It basically goes from 0. Now if you look at the red here, it's going from 0 to 1. That's the scale that they use in Apple Motion. It also pertains to 0 and 255, which is another way of determining the strength of the color. So just so you know that you basically have 0 and anywhere in between. And the same with the alpha. You see that the red and the alpha all equal 1. So 1 in this case is 100% opacity, and 0 is 0% opacity. Just so you know how the scales work. And as I hover around, you'll see that as I go to white, they will all be 1, full red, full green, full blue, or 255, 255, 255. And alpha is also full alpha, which is full opacity on the transparency channel. So that's what the alpha is it determines how much the channel has in opacity. So not to go too technical, but just know that when an image is made, this particular image here, I can export this with the alpha. Because the alpha is all equal to 1 in this area and 0 here, it means that when you export it as ProRes 4444 is the only one that you can export with color and the alpha channel. So that means that you can use these as an overlay. So when you put this on top of another clip, say in iMOVIE or any other video editing, this will overlay and this will remain transparent. So whatever's below will show through. I'll demonstrate that here just by importing this movie here will do. I downloaded this from the internet, and I'll show you in another section of this video about that. But if I import that, now you see it's overlaid on the top. But if I go to Object and Send to the back, then I'd have to make a new group. I'll put that in a separate group so that I can move I'll send that to the back. And now this group is the colors. So I can now move this around, and you'll see that just the channels with the red, green, and blue with alpha on 1 is not transparent. it shows that the alpha is at 1, so the transparency is at 0%, and so that whatever's behind it can be seen. That's just a quick demonstration on how that is. So now if I rotate around onto these and just keep an eye on how these colors work, there's full red, that's red and blue. Red and blue make magenta. This is red, green, and blue. Remembering that all these that have color also have 100% alpha as well. So there's red and green, and that's just green, and that's blue and green here, and that's blue. So you notice that these values change. If I'm into this area here, then there's very, very low amounts of color in each of the channels. Very small. If you look at black, black is at 0. This is just a little bit above black, so it's a little bit more colorful than black. That's at small percentages there. So in this area, I just wanted to touch on basically how these alphas work and how color works in any animation program will be the same. Apple Motion, After Effects, Illustrator, Photoshop, all those will operate the same way with either the color channels are at 0 or 100%. Or 1 in this case, or 255 in other cases, and alpha is the same. The amount of transparency that is involved, 0 is full transparent, and anything to 1 or 255 will have some percentage of opacity right up until the full opacity, which is the top numbers. So I hope that sort of explains some things as I move on. So I'm going to close that off. I want to bring up the other one. Now, I just wanted to point out one thing I learned. The last video I did, I found that iMOVIE was cropping off some of this screen. And so it makes it a bit of a problem because I'm using QuickTime to create the screen recording. I tend to just scale these windows down a little bit, and unfortunately sometimes when I'm working on this top toolbar, it's cut off for some reason. So the aspect ratio of iMOVIE is 16:9, if that makes any sense, and that equates to 1920 by 1080, but for some reason the screen recording is missing out, is getting cropped off, and I'm going to demonstrate about that when I get to the section I'm doing on iMOVIE. So, but first of all, you see I've got this Apple Motion animation. It's a little robot man twirling around, and I also would like to point out that when I was doing some experimenting, when I wanted to export this with the alpha channel, when I export this as a movie, the only color, and if you notice up here, when you touch on these pixels, they have some sort of color, and when you go into the alpha, it's all 0. Red is at 0.016 for some reason. I don't know why that is. Could be something to do with my program. But anyway, when you're working with transparencies like this, it's sort of like working with green screen. If you want to make these with a transparent background and no background color, then again, you just go up to the color nodule here, which is in this group here, and you can go back to color if you want. But I find that working in transparency, it's sometimes hard to see your object if it's white. But I did find out that when I exported, and I'm going to show you in a minute how to export this and maintain the alpha channel as transparent. When I had lights on, it affected the alpha as well, so you couldn't see through it for some reason. And I don't know what that was, so I just found I'd left that off. I did another one where on the other video I've exported something else, and it didn't have any lights on it, so it didn't affect it. But this one, the alpha wouldn't be transparent when I export it. So, but this is just the setup here with all the layers. Each section I've got knee and left foot. I don't want to go too much into how I made this, but it is interesting if you're interested in creating little robotic type where his legs are moving, his feet are moving, that sort of thing. But I made all these in the library. If you go to the 3D objects, you have all these to choose from. And this is basically made from two shapes. This cylinder. And I also found this helix here used for the rib cage. And that's all it was, because each one of these, if you go to Inspector, you can then toy around with the different scaling. So as you see, I can scale these up individually in all 3 axes, that sort of thing. So that's how that's done anyway. So I'll take that back off just so it's out of the way. So you can see here I've basically just made up these as different components. I started with the individual shapes, and then I made this so you can bend the knee and the ankle, and then I put all that into a group so that this could be rotated. That's how that's made. So, and the idea with this is now I've got it all set up so that I can export this all out with just the object in a transparent background, which is handy for movie editing. So, but just know that, so the way these are set up is you really do want to organize your layers so that you have a level of control. So you can see here the Z axis is animated, but then you go up to the full group. I put these 2 into a group, and now the X is being animated, that sort of thing. So, and the same with all the others. So just a little background on how to make those little animations. So I'm going to go off that for the minute, and we're going to pull up the iMOVIE. So with iMOVIE, it's sometimes nice to have a transparent layer, which is this top one, and the background is a background. So I've overlaid the little robot guy on top of this field of daffodils. He can just float around in space. And how I've also set this up, and this was a bit of trial and error, I find that there's not a lot of information about iMOVIE, so I'm doing a lot of experimentation just to, see how everything works. One of the things that bothered me, first of all, you can't switch these things off that they could work out. I mean, I can just go up to this area here. First of all, in the crop, I've got it set to fit. You can do a bit with the colors and all that sort of thing. And when this is set to cutaway, cutaway means that it just fills up, and it's exactly 1920 by 1080 as it was made. And then you can adjust the opacity this way. But if you want some level of control over this top layer, then I found that you go to picture-in-picture, and you have this small thing, and he does the same thing. He's floating around, but you can actually position. You can scale it up however you like. You can scale it right up over top if you want, and really you can just keep scaling and make sure that one of your handles is. So now we've got this scale that is much larger. It's overlaying on top with the transparency that we created in the background. So that was the end result of why I wanted to do that. The basic rundown is you have two tracks to work with. You have an audio track too, which you can, but this is rather limited. It would be nice if there was a way of putting a third, but just go up here to media. That's the one with the transparency. Know that if you go up to view and make sure your skimmer info is on, when you skim these over, then you can work out by the name as a skim. As you see, I try to bring this other one down, and all it does is it doesn't want to sit on top. So it's telling me there's only 2 tracks to work with. So this was the end result of what we wanted to achieve, which we've done. And if you want to get rid of this and have a larger screen, you can just tick off if you want to go in and change projects, you can do that, which I'm going to do in a minute. I'm just going to go back into this robot 3D, and I'm going to finish off here with the last thing which we wanted to do is export this so that I had the clip that I wanted to work with. Forgot to show you how it's done, but so we have this export share. We've got our basic info. We go to settings, and we set to Apple ProRes 4444. The resolution is already there. All these settings have been done when you make up the project to begin with. So, and you have color and alpha. So you have to make sure that that's ticked. If you want to only send it, for some reason, if you only want to send alpha through, you can do that, but I haven't worked out why you would, but it's there anyway. And you will notice it's a rather large file, which can be re-encoded later on to a smaller file. My technique is I export it out in the large file, and that's basically hit next, and it prompts you for a name, which I've already done this, so I won't go through it again, but you just you name it how you like, and then it's there. It'll go to your destination. That I set it up to just drop onto the desktop, and then we look for our quick way is you check your get info. We have a look, and there it is, Apple ProRes 4444, and this is the one I think that I put onto that iMOVIE. So we've got this. So there it is. You'll see a black background, but this is all transparent. So if I just go back to that movie and just double check, Robot 3D PR4444, that was the one. You basically created a, albeit rather large, file. If you find that the ProRes 4444 is a very large file and you want to still have your alpha but compress the rest of it down, you have the option of encoding the media, which I did by I right-clicked here, and you see there's a choice to come up with. Now it is ProRes already. We can take it down to 1080p HEVC, which is high efficiency. Click the preserve transparency, and so there we are. Now we've got two files. Get info. So you can see this is the one that's in ProRes 4444. It's 32, and here it's in HEVC with alpha. Is 3.7 meg, so it's a much smaller file. It's really important, I think, to get used to this get info. It does tell you a lot. If I just put these side by side, probably at this level, probably won't notice much of a difference. This is the compressed version here, and this is the uncompressed. So not much difference, but when you start dealing with longer files, it may make a difference. So your computer might not be able to handle the processing and those sort of things. So one last thing. This is regarding downloading from the internet. I found that favorite site of mine is Pixabay. I've got my own channel on here with a few animations going on that are available for free download and use. And lately I've been doing a few, you would notice these from another video I did. And these have got the transparencies on them, and they're true transparencies. So when I downloaded this from the internet to show that in that other project I did a lot of these in After Effects as well. So sometimes when you go in, you can search and download for free. I've downloaded some of these things from my own site, but just to see if the transparency actually does work. And I found that the ones that I posted did maintain their transparencies okay, but sometimes they say that they're going to have the transparency, but I downloaded a couple and the transparency didn't work. And I tried to re-encode it in Apple Motion and it didn't work. So sometimes it's hard to find downloadable free clips that do have the alpha. That's true that you could put on top of this, but this one here is one that I went ahead and downloaded my own thing, and as you see I'm placing it here. For some reason it doesn't have it. You can lower the opacity to get that same thing. So that one I downloaded from the internet, and I think maybe when I re-encoded it to make it smaller to upload it, it lost its transparency in that stage. So that's where that high efficiency with alpha comes in handy, and that is encoded from ProRes 4444. So just remember those two numbers, and the high efficiency is small enough to actually fit on some of the places where you upload. They have a limit to the amount that they'll take. So here I was searching again. I was looking for animated with Alpha. It came up. I did get a few show up, but I tried, yeah, this one here. This says animated with Alpha 4K, all that. And I tried the clock, but it's quite easy. You just go here to download, and you choose the resolution that you want. I usually get 1920 by 1080. I tried that one and didn't have the Alpha. And I tried this one here, and same thing. It didn't work either, as you soon see. A lot of these people, like myself, just we upload these things so people can have some stock to work with when you're learning about iMOVIE and Apple Motion or any video editing. It's nice to have, if you don't have your own video camera, it's a quick way to just download some clips, so that you can practice with your editing and all that to get used to it. So it's a quick way of doing it. So yeah, I tried that and nothing. So like I said, if it's not showing the Alpha, then the next best thing is to go up here to this little box here, this icon, open it up when it's in cutaway mode, and then you can adjust the opacity down of the top layer. And then it shows through a bit better. It's taking away a lot of the Alpha. So you can get these composite type images going. If you want to do more composite, then what you have to do is, like they do in audio recording, is you bounce. If you want to do these things, then it's best to get familiar with something like After Effects or Apple Motion, which is a cheaper version. Do your animations that way. So I've got a few videos started up I've done on how to animate in Apple Motion. Plus there's plenty more out on the YouTube. So this one here is the one I made in my Apple Motion here, and this is truly transparent. It's got the Alpha, so you can see right here without affecting the opacity. It's the bottom layer is showing through nicely. I'm just going to finish off by saying, if you want to achieve this sort of thing again, then the best way to do it is export the clip. Your resolution is 1080p, so you want to leave that, but you do have a choice of your best in ProRes. There is some custom things which you can adjust if some places you're sending them to have a recommended megabit rate, which is this, megabits per second. You may have to adjust this down, and as you notice down here, the file size is getting smaller as well. If you ever need to keep within a range of bit rate for a particular download, some platforms may have a requirement, so you want to be aware you can do that. You can make a better quality there. But I tend to send this out as the best, and you see the file jumped up quite a bit. When you're working with these files, if your computer is up to scratch, then these file sizes aren't going to really make any difference for you. So I'm just going to do that so I can find it easy. So I'm going to export this whole thing out as a new file. It's there. And I'll import. So this is a ProRes 422 version that is compositing both the little man. I'll just import it so we can see it. There it is there, and that's AAAA, as you see up there in the skimmer. So I'll drop that down, and then I can drop the Robo Man again. So now I've got two. And on this one, I will, in cutaway, I'll go picture to picture, and now I can size up and position. And you can even select that again, and we go to crop and rotate, so there'll be a bit of a difference. So there he is there. So there you go. You see how it's overlaying. These are all joined up as a ProRes 422 clip, and this is your ProRes 444 that's been brought in on top with the transparency. So now we've got both of those, and this is how you can just keep making composites. So you can now export this together and bring it back in just like I did, and you can have all these different composites thrown on top of it. So if that makes sense, I hope it does. This is a bit more advanced than what you're going to see in a lot of the YouTube instructionals that I've been watching. So this is I'm just trying to squeeze every bit of octane out of iMOVIE that it could possibly get. In a more professional capacity, I'd rather use Premiere Pro or even Final Cut Pro. Final Cut Pro here in Australia costs about $500. The Adobe suite that has Premiere Pro and After Effects and Photoshop and all that costs up around $75 a month, so for a subscription. So a much different level of professionalism. So like I'm doing this for YouTube and it's working great. Take this I'm recording my audio on Logic Pro X on a different computer while I'm doing all this with QuickTime, and I'll edit this afterwards, and then I will bounce the audio and bring that in and make my cuts and all that, and then produce a instructional video. So it's good for YouTube. But if you're looking at making independent film or short films or something like that, then you really need Final Cut Pro or even the Adobe stuff. So just my opinion, I'll just leave it at that, I suppose. So but anyway, I hope this was helpful. I like putting these videos together just as a bit of practice for myself, and it's a bit of a hobby of mine. I'm not selling any classes or anything like that. I appreciate you watching, and I hope that it's in a nice format which is understandable. It is a little bit more advanced than your typical how to use iMOVIE sort of thing and how to use Apple Motion. But if you get at a level where you know how to import, how you manipulate your workspace, and you know how to import. You can switch off screens and things like that. You know about controls already. I'm still learning a lot of stuff myself, but I figure that get familiar with all this first. But just know that you can make a ton of composites all over the screen pretty easy with this technique. So hopefully you'll be able to use it anyway. So I'll leave it at that, and I'll start working on my next project. I'm sort of enjoying doing these little tutorials for you, so I hope that they're appreciated and you learn something from it. Having said that, I'll say goodbye and see you in the next one. So take care.